Hi everyone, this is Sunette here in this sole video to ask you a question. This question, just to give you a bit of a story, actually comes from an experience that I've had or actually developed in my life, in my relationship with words. So the question I have is, have you ever, for example, watched a series episode or a movie or a documentary, YouTube videos, and while you're watching and listening, you hear a word that you've never heard before, and it's like suddenly you start paying more attention. You just try to listen more. You then start wondering, but what does that word mean? Or do you kind of just brush it aside? It goes through the one ear and out the other. You hear it, but you don't think of it much. But it does create like a movement in you, like an experience. Like, I don't know that word. So for me, what was interesting in my life when it came to words was that whenever I would initially read a word or hear a word that I didn't know, I would just accept it. And I would just go, okay, I don't know that word. I would never take the initiative to check it out in a dictionary, understanding the definition of that word as it exists. I just kind of accepted the fact that that word is not in my vocabulary, is not in my brain, in myself, or in my life. So what? And then I would just continue with my life as is and the very limited vocabulary I had when I was a teenager. But fortunately, I, in my life, got exposed to words and reading. And, well, I've always been exposed to reading, but more reading in terms of, having a personal relationship with it, reading by choice. Not by ever feeling like I am being forced to or have to, where mainly got that relationship with reading through my experiences and processes in school. And I'm not saying in any way whatsoever it was school or the education system that was the problem. It was how I got introduced, into reading or having to read or having to study. I realized I never throughout my life really had to look at my relationship with reading, with words, and ask myself, who am I within it? What is reading? What is words to me? What does it mean to me? And here, obviously, doing that in a way where whenever I would read or, look up words that I didn't understand, that didn't exist in me, that I didn't know the definition of, that was, I redefined myself in reading and words to assist and support in initially only expanding my vocabulary and seeing how I could use more and different words in sentences, kind of spruce up my sentences just a little bit more, make my communication a little bit interesting, So I was experimenting and playing with words for some time, and it was exceptionally fun because I was experimenting and playing as much with expanding myself within it. So this is something for everyone here in Soul to take with you, because this process of defining, redefining, and living words is going to include much writing, reading, looking, assessing, and within this to have a look at asking yourself the question, what is my relationship with words? Is it maybe even ever something that you have asked yourself? Who am I in my relationship with words themselves? What do words mean for me in who I am, in my process, in my life, my enriching of my communication, my sharing, my living. Because I also found an interesting connection. This is me also, just having a look at myself and my life. And an interesting connection I found was, years ago, before I started exploring and opening up and expanding my relationship with words, initially through reading. And then, for example, what I do is, whenever possible, if I would watch a series or a movie, I would change the settings in such a way where I can actually read the dialogue as well. Same with documentaries, things like that, because here this assisted and supported me in expanding my vocabulary as well. And I really enjoyed the reading and hearing and watching at the same time, because that was just me later on, where I didn't like anymore just sitting back and watching. I wanted to also participate more practically. And so that was the choice that I'd made. It really assisted and supported me as well. But, within that, an interesting dimension that I could see within my life was, before all of that happened and my experience with work changed, I almost felt claustrophobic, inside myself, limited, enclosed, isolated. And once I started changing my relationship with words and expanding on them, I found that I started almost wanting to get to know people more, reach out, communicate, really be a part of, something in me just opened. And so it was not only me within myself that was starting to expand and grow and change and mature, but it started showing and reflecting also equally as much in my life. So, we don't realize how much our current even self-definition of who we are, how we see ourselves, how we view ourselves, the vocabulary that we're using to define who we are and how we are, is actually limiting us in many ways. And limiting in a way not necessarily, let's say explicitly, meaning where you deliberately know that you are limiting yourself. This has also been in a conversation with an individual I had some time ago, where I told them, you're limiting yourself. Then I wouldn't ever limit myself. What type of person do you think I am? I'm like, no. That's not what I meant. What I meant by limiting ourselves is we're inadvertently doing that by not expanding, not growing. It's shame. We're almost like these flowers that's supposed to grow and bloom, and for some reason we're in this freeze frame, where we've grown and we're stuck. We don't take that, let's call it that life sustenance that we have through words to expand, to flower, to bloom, to grow, and that's how I started viewing myself. And so there's one interesting thing that I love gifting myself, and that is making sure that, yes, we all do get so, for a moment, stuck in the chaos and the busyness of everyday life. Before we know it, we haven't done certain things you've really wanted to do in a week or in a month. But, when you start making, defining, redefining, and living words a natural part of you and your everyday life, it won't then be something you've got to remember. It's something that becomes you. Obviously, it first takes practice. But, there's one thing I gift myself every day is at least asking myself, did I learn a new word? Did I in any way expand or change or, look into words that I am busy redefining and living? How am I nurturing my growth and development and expanding, even through the challenges of everyday life sometimes. Sometimes we think, the problems or the chaos and just the overwhelming things we face within ourselves and our lives means that we can't grow, develop, and change when, those are the very moments and phases in life where you can grow and change and develop the most. Look at life's challenges as almost a breeding ground for self-creation, all right? And, have a look at if this happens to you. When you start redefining and living words and including and expanding them into you, your life, your living, where when you start listening to people, conversations, no, not meaning like sneakily. When you start participating in conversations, and that you're listening to everyone's words, that when you hear a new word, a word you haven't heard before, you start paying attention more, asking yourself, what does that word mean? If there is someone there with you and you're not afraid to ask, I heard you use that word. May I ask what it means? I have not heard it before. Don't ever be afraid to ask, to learn. To ask is to learn. So also have a look at the tendency that we have to fear learning through asking. And find a way where you can include words more into you and your everyday life, to make sure that your life, even through the day's ups and downs, becomes an assisting and supporting of you to grow, develop, and expand. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to this video and joining us in the process with soul. Thank you.